You have these amazing plays that have lasted all these years, and you have these topics that are still so relevant today.
They start to see that these themes and these relationships are really, really universal, then they fly and they really get into it.
In his mind, he was imagining all of those different kinds of people as the audience he wanted to speak to, and so his stories, as a result, reflect that.
And anyone from birth to old age can relate to any character in Shakespeare. I know what Othello may have felt being the only person in his neighborhood that looked like him. I was born in the West Indies, then came to the States in 1969. I lived in Brooklyn, in Bed-Stuy. There I was, coming from England, a West Indian kid, 5th grade, going into a school when I had a British West Indian accent. It was kind of tough. So I had to be careful, and I had to make sure that I didn't get beat up. So I made people laugh, and I started memorizing Shakespeare. And so I would do that in class, and a lot of the tough kids sort of made me part of their group because I was a little different.
When you bring laughter into the lives of people who haven't maybe laughed in a really long time, that is an incredibly powerful thing. CalShakes is always looking for new directors and new ways to bring Shakespeare's work alive, and they heard about me. 10,000 Things brings the very best professional theater to audiences who have never experienced theater before. Audiences in prisons, homeless shelters, detox centers. CalShakes learned of this model we've created of taking Shakespeare to audiences who don't usually go, and invited me and 10,000 Things out to show them how we do it, with the hope being that it will go well and everyone will like and be excited by this idea, and CalShakes can continue to do it on its own. It's interesting to think about who was in Shakespeare's audience, and he also had everybody. It wasn't just well-educated and wealthy people who could afford to buy a ticket. He performed for the groundlings, people who paid a penny and they stood in front of the stage and they shouted things at the actors.
We had a teacher by the name of Barbara Glickenstein, but there would be always something in her class that had to do with theater, almost every day. And the more I read of Shakespeare, the more I realized that there's nothing like this at all.
You must confine yourself to the modest limits of order. Confine!
There was something about reading this language and the rhythm of it, and the style of it, and the characters, and the broadness of it, and the universality of it. Whatever her understanding and her love of it came across to us.
So there are 87 schools in Oakland serving over 36,000 kids, and there's only one full-time paid drama teacher. And that's a woman over at Oakland Tech High School. And so she turned me on to CalShakes and let me know that they would bring programs into my class. They made it really clear that they could bring Shakespeare to any age, and so that really got me excited. When you tell a student that the first unit of the year is going to be a Shakespeare play, the initial reaction is, and then once they see that the themes in Shakespeare, the jokes in Shakespeare, the characters in Shakespeare are super relatable, they really get into it.
And which one of these characters would you be?
So Shakespeare was great. It has middle school humor. It has this amazing reputation that this is Shakespeare and it's hard and he's really important. And so I figured this is gonna be a great experience. This is gonna give the kids not only exposure to great theater, but they're gonna feel important.
We had a young man who came back to teach at Performing Arts by the name of James Moody. There was this articulate, handsome, African-American male coming to Performing Arts High School and saying that you can do what I'm doing. You can be me. You can go to Juilliard, you can be hired as an actor, and you can work as a Shakespearean actor. I'm doing it. Well, that's all I needed to see.
Earlier today, I got to meet with Peter Callender, who is an actor from CalShakes, who came in and was just brought so much joy and energy. And the kids are suddenly like, whoa, these are real people. This is a real thing. This is something I could do. This guy looks normal, you know? I could do this. I could be an actor. I could do this for a living. Just doing something hard, taking something that's difficult and being able to reach up to it is something that I think, unfortunately, we don't always ask students to do.
My first professional gig was at Syracuse Stage, upstate New York. It was Shakespeare. Then I did 12th Night at Cincinnati Playhouse. And then I did Pennsylvania Stage Company. So a lot of different regional theaters across, primarily in the East Coast. And then got married and did a Broadway show, Prelude to a Kiss. We won Broadway for a year and a half. And then I auditioned for CalShakes. And I auditioned for Hamlet to play Laertes. And I got in. And 20 years later, I'm still with CalShakes.
Trunk work. So, let us be cleared of being tyrannous.
In our world now, women don't have as many opportunities to play interesting, complicated characters. So I thought, well, Shakespeare did it with all men, let's do it with all women. And it's just delightful to see what happens when you do that, when you start realizing that in Shakespeare's 12th Night, there was a man falling in love with a woman who was actually a man who had disguised himself as a man but was actually a woman.
Babbling gossip of the air, cry out.
I think one reason that Shakespeare works so well with our non-traditional audiences is that many of them have lived their lives at the same extremes of human existence as the characters in Shakespeare's plays. They know much more about the world of those characters and those plays.
The students are doing 12th Night. We talked about it last year, about if we were going to do a Shakespeare play, which one would we like to do? We chose 12th Night because it's really funny, and so both the Shakespeare program during the regular class and the drama class have allowed kids to do that, have allowed them to reach up to heights that they never thought they could reach. So it's very cool.
Through CalShakes, I worked with a couple of schools in Berkeley. They come to see shows at CalShakes, and they remember me. And some of them went on to theater, some of them went on to teaching, some of them went on to do wonderful things in college. But they remembered that experience, just as I remembered my experience in 6th grade. They remember that. And something about Shakespeare, something about learning and appreciating and understanding this language gets to them, and it sticks with them all their lives. I think without teachers, a lot of us would be floundering, and my teachers at Performing Arts High School, they saw something in me.
There's no excuse for kids in the Bay Area where there's so much to be without exposure to great theater.
I think having everybody in the audience makes Shakespeare's work better.